Good evening, everyone from Berlin, and welcome to tonight's public event about culture, society, gender relations, social entrepreneurship, and migration in Morocco. My name is Christoph Dinkelacker, and I am an active member in tonight's two hosting organizations, Asharq and Disorient. Disorient is a non-profit organization run by journalists, academics, and activists with a focus on Western Asia and Northern Africa. Inspired by feminist and post-colonial thoughts, we try to tackle Orientalist discourses and to work on the multiple entanglements between Germany, Europe, and our focus region, Western Asia and Northern Africa. Have a look at our website and contact us if you want to join or become an active member in this exciting project. The other organization, Asharq, started as a blog on Western Asia and Northern Africa and developed into a travel agency with a focus on political tours to Western Asia and Northern Africa mainly. Nowadays, due to Corona, we also offer digital tours to places from Morocco all the way to Myanmar in South Asia. And last but not least, and this is a new thing, we offer post-colonial tours and post-migrational tours in Germany, and also feel welcome to check out our website. My dear technical colleagues will be inserting all the links of the organizations I mentioned before. Tonight, I'm not going to moderate, but my dear colleague Emilia Thalheim, who is currently in Marrakesh, in Morocco, and now I would like to hand over to her. Bye-bye.
Hello, can you hear me?
Emi, can you hear us?
I hope I can hear you well, but I cannot start my video. Do you hear me?
Yes.
Okay.
All right.
No.
Here we go.
Hello. So some
Bye,
starting
the floor is yours.
difficulties, but now you can hear me and you can see me, I hope. Can you?
Yes,
yeah,
we can see and hear you. Yeah.
You can hear me well, you can see me well, then I can get started. So, guten Abend, Masa al-Khair, bonsoir à tous, good evening. It's my pleasure to say welcome to Morocco to everybody and to welcome you to the Red City, Marrakesh, where I am right now. I am in the middle of the Medina. And just came back here some weeks ago with a business invitation. So I'm missing my colleagues in the Berlin studio. It was fun to see you. And it's also fun to see many of you here in this event. Usually when I work for Asharq, I'm behind the scenes. Tonight, my colleagues thought this should change and I should come in front of the camera. And I think this might have to do with the view I have here in Marrakesh, which I will share with you in a second. But before we do that, I will give you an idea where we are right now. I switched my camera. I hope it's not too pixely for you. Here we have a map of Marrakesh. It's all over there. You can see a lot of green fields there as well, because there are parks here, yes. And I hope you can see it and it's not too pixely. The black line, this is the old city, the old Medina, where I am right now. And I am up here in the northern part, which is the Tannery Quarter. It is close to the Madrasa Ben Yusuf, which is an old Quran school, which is being renovated, has been renovated for the last 2 or 3 years, I guess. It's not opened yet. And it's close to the photography museum, if anyone knows it. But now, let's go over to this fantastic view I have over here. So I hope it's getting clear for you to see. So this is Marrakesh. And I am here in a guest house called Housing Marrakesh, She Rashid. Thanks for having us. this quarter here is mainly inhabited by residents. So you cannot really spot the difference between before and now during Corona, because outside here in the streets, it seems like it's usually was. But of course, the difference is you have to wear a mask here. It's mandatory as soon as you leave your house. So if it is not as dusty and muggy as it is right now, we still have over 30 degrees here, there you usually can see the Atlas Mountains, but now I think it might be a little bit hard for you to see. And you can see we are almost at sunset. The new town, so-called Gelise, is over there. And the big mosque you can see there is the Kudibia Mosque, the booksellers mosque. The name is depicted from the book selling trade, which was happening there when the mosque was built. I guess it was in the 1150s, if I remember it right. And this mosque was also a role model for almost all the other mosques which were built in the Maghreb. It's the biggest mosque here. I heard like 25,000 people can pray there. I don't know if it's true, because as a non-Muslim, you cannot visit it. I think the only mosque you can visit here in Morocco is the big one in Casablanca. And where the mosque is, I'm turning because it might be hard to see for you because of the sunset. Where the mosque is, there's also the big square, Jemal Ifna. You saw pictures of it in the introduction screen sharing. And this looks really different now under Corona. But in the last days, my experience was that it might come back to life, because it is said that it is also possible for tourists to enter Morocco now, after the borders were completely closed for months. You will need a hotel reservation, as far as I know. And of course, you will need all the negative COVID testings, and then it should be possible to get in. So I show you another thing, which is really a good view, because usually these here down are the Tanneries of Marrakesh. You might have seen pictures of Fez. These are the Tanneries here in Marrakesh, where it's, I think, 1,000-year-old handicraft to prepare the leather. It has a lot of steps. I don't know all of them. You can see a lot of pools there. And over there, you can maybe see the leather, which is already ready to dry. You can visit the tanneries here, but be careful. You might meet one of the illegal guides to tell you they are all gentlemen and will show it to you, and they don't want money, and in the end they want money. So if you want to visit it, just do your research before how it is possible, and then it's no problem. And it's really interesting to see, and it's really, really hard work the guys are doing there. They are starting in the early morning to separate the skins from the hair, and there's even a step which contains bird poo. The leather is done into, I don't know, but it's really interesting to see. So now I will get back that you can see me. Okay, and I will sit here. So you see, I could talk about Marrakesh for 2 hours, but that is not what we planned today. So I will get over to the program we have prepared today for you. So yeah, thank you. My colleagues will show it to you by a screen presentation. We will start with Bauke Baumann. He's the office manager of the German foundation Heinrich-Böll here in Morocco. And he will give a general presentation about the society and the culture here in Morocco. So we will continue with Fatima Sadiki. She will teach us more about the gender relations in Morocco. then we will get back here to Marrakesh and talk to the social enterprise Pikala Bikes and their services and to manager Facil Issam. And after that, last but not least, we will talk about migration with Yemoh Odoi from the Minority Association. Minority Globe Association, sorry, my bad. And now I think we should start with Bauke Baumann, who is, as I said, the office manager of the Heinrich-Böll Foundation in Rabat. And the Heinrich-Böll Foundation is a German green foundation, which is networking internationally with green projects and future projects. And I think they are active in more than 30 countries. But Bauke, maybe, I hope you're there, and maybe you can tell us more about it. And of course, we would like to hear about the culture and the society in Morocco from you.
Thank you, Emilia. Good evening, and thank you very much for inviting me. It's really a pleasure to be with you, and hi from Rabat. I do not have such spectacular views from a rooftop terrace, but I hope I can tell you a little more about Morocco. I won't go into detail what the Heinrich-Böll Foundation is doing. You can check out our website, or I don't know, just write me an email later if you are interested in this. I know I'm practically on a mission impossible, giving a 15 minutes input, introducing a whole country as rich in history, diverse, multifaceted as Morocco is practically impossible. I will try to do my best, but I know this is really hard. To get started, I definitely need your help, and with your help, I mean like all of you watching right now. I would like to start with asking you for your very first association that comes to your mind when thinking of Morocco. I know you saw already some pictures, but what are the places, things, or people you would immediately associate with Morocco? I invite you to now use the chat and just post whatever comes to your mind first when thinking about Morocco. And I'm quite curious to see a little bit, what is it that you associate with Morocco? Feel free, use the chat, and we will see what comes out of this little exercise. My wife, Du Soleil, handcraft, Mohamed Sis, Tagine, variety of landscapes, Medina, agriculture. I see it's already connoisseur du pays. It's not just, I thought first, of course, of Marrakesh, maybe the movie Casablanca, Tagine, the king, of course, Berber carpets, mint tea, yeah, indeed. I see you have many associations, incredibly engaged civil society actors. Yes, I can confirm. I'm very happy to have so many engaged partners, such as Minority Globe, which I'm happy to listen later on to their input. Argan oil, wow. Okay, I think this is already a very good introduction. Indeed, all of this is Morocco, but of course, it is only a part of the picture, a picture that is in reality way even more nuanced, diverse, and also at times contradictory. I just would like, in addition to all these things you posted already, to give maybe just a random selection of other facts that might be less known, just to give an idea about really the diversity of Morocco and what it is else beside a very nice old Medina of Marrakesh, for example. So, for example, Morocco has the highest mountain in the Arab world, the Toubkal, with over 4,000 meters in the High Atlas. Morocco has also the largest solar power plant in the world with the Noor station in Ouarzazate. And I don't know, on Fridays, basically all the Moroccans are eating a yummy big couscous. Of course, not all of them, and maybe not all Fridays, but I can really assure you, going Fridays to a restaurant, you will mainly find couscous on the menu. And Also something, Morocco used to have the biggest Jewish community in the whole Arab world. During World War II, Sultan Mohammed V even protected the Jews from deportation. Now most of them live in Israel. And of course, only here in Morocco, in the southern region, you find the argan tree that you might know from many cosmetic products. Nowhere else in the world it's growing. And last but not least, of course, the famous peppermint tea. And I would say you don't find a better one anywhere else. After this random selection of some fun facts, if you want to say so, I try to get started with a more serious introduction to the country, and will try to share my screen to show you just a little presentation, nothing big. I hope you can see it. Now it's here. I hope you see it as well. So getting started with some key facts and figures that might be important to understand the country. Morocco has about 35 million inhabitants that are living mainly at the coastal areas. The large part of the interior of the country is only sparsely populated, also because, of course, there's many arid regions and desert, and it's hard to do agriculture there. The people speak mostly Darija, which is basically the Moroccan version of the Moroccan dialect of Arabic, but also different Berber dialects that are called Amazigh, which is mostly an oral language and only recently got also a sign language. Then French is also acknowledged as an official language, but mostly spoken by an elite. The country is constituted as a kingdom. I think we already had this, with a monarch that has large powers, but also parliament that is directly elected, as well as a government that is basically formed or elected from the parliament. State religion is Islam, and here is really 98% of the population are Muslims or are considered as Muslims. So there's really just tiny minorities of some Jews, some Shia, some Christians. Economically, Morocco is rather doing well compared to other countries in the region, but this doesn't mean that this economic success, everybody benefits from it. This shows also the GDP per capita, which is only $3,200. Just as a comparison, Germany has 46,000 US dollars per capita, and also other countries in the region have higher per capita GDP. Moving on to the history, and don't worry, I will just give you a few landmarks as an orientation. I choose to start in the 7th century, when basically the Arabs arrived in Morocco. Before, of course, it was rather Berber tribes living in Morocco, and when basically Morocco became part of the Islamic Empire. This way also the Islam and the Arabic language was brought to Morocco. And maybe also interesting to know that, like, Morocco comes from Al-Maghrib, which basically means the West, as the West of the Islamic Empire. In the following centuries, Morocco became like a flourishing kingdom that was often way larger than the country is now, under changing different dynasties of Berber, but also Arabs that are ruling the country. And this was, I think, also the time where like these legendary cities like Marrakesh, like Fez, Meknes were founded. And you see here on the picture, for example, one of the madrasas you find in Fez, which are really wow. And yeah, a little bit was each ruler wanted to found his own fancy capital city. And this way, of course, there are these 4 royal cities in Morocco. Since the 17th century, Morocco is continuously ruled by the Alawid dynasty, which is an Arabic dynasty, which goes back to the Prophet Muhammad, and also still King Muhammad VI is part of the Alawid dynasty, and in this function also a descendant of the Prophet Muhammad. And yeah, beginning of the 20th century, Morocco became a French and also partly Spanish protectorate. and only got its independence in 1956. Briefly on the political system, again, I think it's important to understand at least the basic lines, how this is organized. As I said, Morocco is a monarchy and is ruled since 1999 by His Majesty Mohammed VI. You see him here on the picture having one of his famous throne speeches. This is basically the only occasions where he appears in public and addresses directly the people. Beside him is his oldest son, Crown Prince Moulay Hassan, who will follow him. He has, if you want to say so, superpowers. He's not only equipped with extensive political powers, but at the same time the leader of all believers as a descendant of the Prophet, and also at the same time one of the biggest entrepreneurs in the country via the royal holding that he is running. But in parallel, and this is important to mention, there's also an elected branch. There are parties that can operate relatively free. There is elections for parliament, and the parliament then again elects a prime minister. But as you see, this creates somehow a hybrid regime that leans to the palace, as a king has a prerogative to intervene into the business of the government and the parliament, but vice versa, the elected institutions cannot control the palace. And I think this is really a distinct feature of the Moroccan system. After all these hard facts, I want to talk a little bit about different living realities and especially about inequalities. Why? Because I think these realities differ really extensively. And again, Morocco is not only a shiny place where you have Marrakesh, where you have Casablanca with its skyscrapers, but where you also have like these bidonville slums, if you want to say so, in the outskirts of Casablanca and other cities, like you see it on the picture. In the MENA region, Morocco is one of the countries with the biggest social inequalities. That is not only shown in the Gini coefficient, Gini index, where basically Morocco is heading in the region and also has a bigger Gini coefficient as Germany, for example. But you also see it if you just walk through the streets or go maybe a little bit outside of the urban bubble of Rabat, Casablanca, Marrakesh, or just to the suburbs where things look very different. And so on the one hand side, you have rich people and also middle class that can afford to buy imported convenience food in supermarkets that is normally even more expensive than in German supermarkets. For example, Nutella or whatever you want to say. It's people that go to fancy shopping malls you find in Casablanca, Marrakesh, Tanger, that can afford driving expensive cars or taking the TGV high-speed train that was just recently inaugurated, and that could send their kids to private schools and later on maybe to universities abroad. But on the other hand, you also have, this is the big majority of the people, people that live rather modest or are really confronted with poverty, and I would say really poverty. These people are often working in the informal sector on precarious jobs, not even having a health insurance. And you can imagine now under Corona, especially with the lockdown, these vulnerable groups suffer even more and lost from one day to the other basically all their revenues as they couldn't go out anymore to do their business, which was based on a day-to-day income, basically. Just as an orientation, I also put here the average salary, which is about 350 to 400 euro. And of course, included here are also all the high salaries. So there are many, many salaries that are way below these 350 euro per month. As you can probably imagine, social inequalities and limited possibilities for political participation create at times frustration and dissatisfaction, especially among young Moroccans. And this was also one of the things that led in 2011 to the Moroccan version of the Arab Spring, the so-called Mouvement de 20 février, the 20th February movement. At the time when all these demonstrations happened, and of course happened also in other countries of the region, the palace reacted very promptly and opened the way for a new constitution that also included many demands from the movement, but also from civil society actors. This way, I would say the new constitution that was adopted in 2011 really marks a significant turning point, as it acknowledges equality between men and women, really on paper, grants more rights to Berber minorities, and gives more power to the parliament and the prime minister. But of course, this is first and foremost the paper and needed to be implemented. I would say, like, after its implementation in 2011, this created a real momentum for reform and change. And there was really high hopes for a constant reform process in this regard. However, now, nearly 10 years later, many activists that I meet are rather disappointed by the mixed track record of this reform process, and complain about the authorities' unwillingness to reform, or complain about that realities are still not living up to what is written in the constitution. And this probably also explains that there are still, of course, limited protests going on in some pockets here and there, but of course not to compare to anything like the 20th February movement. At the same time, and I think this is also what personally me always gives hope and inspires me, is to see how many and even increasingly more civil society initiatives and actors are out there, at least according to my observation, that are working on an ecological transformation of the country. For example, when it comes to just waste management, how can you better organize that waste is separated in the households and then collected in a way and recycled. And this is often just small initiatives doing a great job, or NGOs supporting vulnerable groups like migrants, be it the Minority Globe, be it migrants organizations themselves, or organizations like Guardianship. Really great to see their work. And of course, all the people and activists advocating for individual rights of Moroccans from all genders. And I think this is also an interesting movement to contribute. Basically, it's classical feminist actors, but also others that joined the movement fighting for the right for abortion, fighting against the criminalization of sexual relations outside marriage, which is basically still punished, and which is a little bizarre when you see that basically if you're not married as a couple, you cannot rent an apartment. And I think this really gives me hope, and you see that things are moving on, even though sometimes with a slow pace. And like working for the Heinrich-Böll Foundation, I consider this is my biggest privilege, having the possibility to meet these actors, having the possibility to work with those actors. And I'm very happy that you have today also the opportunity to listen and to interact with some of those great change makers from civil society, academia, maybe also from startups. So thank you very much for your attention, and yeah, have a good rest of the evening.
So thank you, Bauke, for accepting this challenge to give a short introductory presentation about Morocco, which is really hard in the time schedule we have. Thank you so much. Now, because of the tight schedule we have, it's already time to say goodbye to you and goodbye to Rabat, and to switch over to our next speaker. Fatima Sadiki is a professor of linguistics and gender studies. She's also an author of numerous publications, such as the Moroccan Feminist Discourses. whenever it comes to gender and feminist topics in North Africa or even in the Warner region, she is quoted worldwide. So we feel very honored that she took the time today to give a short presentation or a short input about gender relations in Morocco, also a very important topic. Please keep in mind that there will be a short Q&A at the end, so feel free to post your questions into the Zoom chat or into the Facebook comments, French, English. And we will try to manage to get as much as we can answered in the tight schedule we have. But for now, I say hello to Fatima Sadiki in Fez, I guess. Are you there?
Yes. Can you hear me?
We can hear you well, we can see you well.
Yeah, thank you very much, Emilia, for this nice invitation. I'm very happy to talk to your audience about a topic that I'm very much interested in. Let me very briefly say who I am, in addition to your generous introduction. I have a rural background, a Berber rural background. I am the eldest of 9 children. I'm a mother of 3, and I am a university professor and have been interested in language and gender ever since, and for many 3 decades at least. Now, when you come to Morocco as a non-Moroccan, I think the best thing to go about it is to look at its women. Women are always the mirror of the culture. Now, Moroccan women, you can look at them at 2 different levels. A simple level that can easily be gauged, that we do not constitute a homogeneous group. We are divided by 6 major categories. This is work I did a long time ago. We are divided first by geography. Rural and urban women are 2 different worlds. We should understand this at all levels. We are also divided by class. Now, class in the West, I'm going to use the West. I know that the West is very complex. Class is upper, middle. Here our class system is more complex. We have a very tiny, very wealthy class. We have a middle class that looks like it has a small head, and it goes like this, like a pyramid, and it gets larger. And we have a middle class. We have a lower class, and we have a destitute class. That is people who have practically nothing. And women belong to all these different classes. They also belong to a geographical division. We are also divided by education. It's true that we have achieved a lot since independence, but it's still very shocking to know that almost 50% of Moroccan women cannot read and write. There are historical reasons for this. The women's issues were not a priority, and they were not a priority during colonization and after colonization. So education divides us. We're also divided by work, by women who work, who have a salary. Because a lot of women, I don't think that Moroccan women don't work. Moroccan women work in informal sector. Rural women, I know that they are workers. But women with salary, they constitute something like, I don't want to hazard something that I'm not sure of, but anyway, you should be urban first to have a salary, and second, you should have some kind of context that pushes you to. I could get my education because my father, who died in 2005, was in the military. Okay, so because he was in the military, I could get my education. So I keep saying that I owe my education to my father and not to the state. And there is a whole generation like myself who actually could access education because their fathers moved to the city. That's something that's not researched enough, if you ask me. So we are also divided by something that I created myself. I'm a linguist by training, so by language. So here language is very important. If you speak French and standard Arabic. Written Arabic, it means you are educated. But with the illiteracy percentage I mentioned to you, you can imagine that a lot of women do not speak French and standard Arabic. Standard Arabic is the written Arabic, and it's not a mother tongue. The mother tongues, the languages that women speak to their kids are either Berber or Amazigh. Amazigh, I'm used to Berber, but Amazigh is also, that's the indigenous language. They speak Darija, mentioned by my colleague before, or Amazigh, okay? But and language interacts with gender, right? Standard Arabic, because it's not a mother tongue, it's a language of religion, it's the language of the mosque, it's the language of the government, but it's not a language that women speak daily. Okay, that's why I call this in some of my writings a male language. It's not that women cannot speak. I write in standard Arabic, I love the language, but it's that standard Arabic is used in contexts where women don't find themselves. As simple as that. Now, Berber is more of a female language because it is a language that's spoken at home and that's very much associated with intimate, if you want, topics. That's why it's more, I mean, historically as a language that's very much related to women. Now, Darija, this is Moroccan Arabic. That's the most Moroccan of Moroccan languages, because whether you are Berber or Arab, that's the what we call the lingua franca, the language that you use in communication. That's Moroccan Arabic. And French, of course, I mean, French, this is the language of the colonizer. But colonizers are not the same. I mean, we were colonized through schooling. I'm not going into that, but French is, there is Moroccan French. French is considered it's considered a Moroccan language. And I still remember one of my teachers when they asked her on television, why do you write in French? And you are not French. She never, at that time, left Morocco. She said, well, French came to me. I didn't go to French. That's one way of summarizing. So we are divided linguistically. This is what I'm trying to tell you. We are also divided by social status, as you can imagine. Married women, unmarried women. Of course, married women, like our family law is about married women. Unmarried women, you have different types of unmarried women, widows and divorcees and what have you, but the single mothers are the most hit. They're not visible to the law, because you have to be married. When you are a widow, it means that you lost the husband. When you are a divorcee, it means that you were married, but when you are a single mother, that's a different thing. So anyway, to sum it up, we are heterogeneous on the surface. But the next question, I hope I have time to go into it, I will be very quick. The next question is that women belonging to all these social categories, they are subject to the same constraints, to the same patriarchy. Okay, that's obvious. Now the question to ask is, what are the sources? Where does this patriarchy come from? That is regardless, because all women were all subject to the same patriarchy. What are its sources? It took me time and effort to find out 3 main sources that I am going just to throw in like that. And during question time, if you are interested, I can First, the first source of patriarchy is the instrumentalization of religion by ancient, if you want, interpreters of the holy texts, the Quran and the Sunnah, or Hadith, that's the Prophet's saying. Let me explain this, if I can. This is, it takes time to understand these things. Now, our Prophet died in 632, okay, 7th century. He didn't leave any laws. He didn't leave any sons, okay? And he was followed by 3 caliphs. Caliphs are the Moroccan rulers. They didn't leave any laws. They didn't leave any sons. They were his companions, okay? But after these caliphs, the last one, Caliph Ali, there was no consensus on him because Ali was a cousin of the Prophet. So some people wanted someone who was not related to the Prophet, and others wanted him. And so we had the first civil war in Islam. And that's the beginning of Shia and Sunnah. So the Sunnis want like a continuation of what the Prophet did, and the Shia are people who believe that there's this blood relationship is important. Anyway, after that civil law, and Islam was spreading in, it was like, or even like the US today multiplied by 3 or 4, it was spreading. So the rulers needed laws. So the laws were made. What I'm trying to say is that they were made by men. That's why we have things like polygamy. That's why we have things like veiling. That veiling exists in all the religions, but I'm talking about Islam here. That's why we have these things, because the texts were interpreted by men. It's only now that some women are trying to interpret texts. Okay, so religion, if you want, is a source that gives authority to men, but not to women. Authority, I define it as power that everybody accepts. That's what women don't have. Men have authority, that's power that everybody accepts. Women can have, and they do have a lot of power, believe me, but what they cannot have is authority. Since they don't have religious authority, so why? Now the people who interpret the text, they say, well, a woman cannot lead prayers because sometimes she has her period. And for that in all religions, I mean, period means dirt. So she cannot lead. Since she cannot lead prayers, she cannot lead a country. So women cannot be the highest in a country just because. So this instrumentalization of specific context and this decontextualization, if you want, of interpretations has produced, I mean, this hierarchy between men and women. And the two pillars of the hierarchy is something we call in Arabic qiwama, which means male guardianship. So the authority and guardianship are in the hands of men, even if that man is your own son, but he has this authority that we still cannot have. And many women in Morocco and outside Morocco, actually the Arab world and the Arab Muslim world, are trying to interpret the text from their own point of view. It's not easy to do it. I can do it. I am not a religious person, but I will always encourage women who do it, because religion is a space which has been created as me. The second source of this authority is language, of course, because the language of interpretation is standard Arabic. Now, who understands standard Arabic even amongst men, let alone like the language of the law? It's only very few people who understand it. So that there is, if you want, a dialectical relationship between the interpretation of the text from which the laws of the family are based and language. So language is a source of power and authority. That's why, yeah, standard Arabic, yeah, and I did a lot of research on that, how standard Arabic is more associated with men and more distant from women. Language is a source. Why I said religion, religion in instrumentalization. It's not religion itself, is religion like any other religion, but how you instrumentalize it, and then language. So, and in Morocco, as it was mentioned before, the Islam is the official language and standard Arabic is the official, no, Islam is the official religion, sorry, and standard Arabic is the official language. The third one is the ruling system, monarchy. Now, the monarch is the highest religious and political authority. Okay, so it's the highest religious and political authority. But for some reason, because the monarch needs modernity, if you want, a la West to survive. So monarchs have always been pro, if you want, development of women, pro education of women, pro this and that. What we have is in society, people accept the king as the highest political and religious authority. But in society, there is division. There are people who are secular who say, well, okay, we are all Muslim, but in society, we are free to do what we want with our religion. It's a personal thing. And then the Islamists who say, oh, no, we want to Islamize society. If we are Islamists, everybody should be Islamic. And this dichotomy has some history behind it. I guess I need to stop. Is that it? So, and there is a historical development which led to this state of affairs. So these are the few ideas I thought I wanted to share with you without notes, just like that. And I thank you very much for listening, and your questions are most welcome.
So thank you very much, Fatima, for your input. It's really very inspiring to hear you talk. And now I can see that there are coming a lot of questions. So the first one is an anonymous one, and it's a really long question. So I try to read it out to you. You mentioned the division of women through geography. Well, and with that, maybe also language and culture. Could you get into a bit more detail? What are the differences between Moroccan, Amazigh, Sahrawi, understandings of gender equality, and other examples of solidarity and the fight for their rights as women across these dividing lines? So there's also a different question which goes a little bit in the same direction. Do you think that there's a difference in the reception of gender roles between Berber culture and Islamic culture? It was a long question. So you're still muted?
I will start with the last question, which is shared by the first person. We should understand that, well, Berbers were the first inhabitants of North Africa. And Berbers, they were, historically, they had different religions, but they were unified by linguistically. They had one language, but because they had different religions, they could never really make a central, if you want, it's a secular, let me say, Berber is a secular language. It's not backed by a holy book. But Berbers were the ones who brought Islam in. And we had Berber dynasty who ruled Morocco from, I think, the 11th century to the 15th century, more or less. So there were dynasties of Berbers. So Berber is part of history. If you look at the Islamists, most Islamists are Berber. Yeah, so the relationship between Berber and that's a very tricky one. And it was mentioned that most Moroccans are Muslim. Now, what is the relationship? What is the difference between Arab Berber? I would say that, now imagine when Arabs came in the 7th century, they didn't bring their wives. So what happened is that they married indigenous wives. So right from the beginning, even from the first ruler, there has been this intermingling of the Berber and the Arab. So I don't think we have an ethnic problem in that sense. What we have is a linguistic problem. I can give you an example of that. If you don't speak Arabic and you are a monolingual, you speak only Berber, and you go to the doctor, there is no translation, if you want, provided. So you are marginalized because you don't speak, you speak only Berber. Or, for example, in court, and I did attend many court cases where there was no translation and the person didn't understand what the Qadi, was his name, or the judge was saying about him, about his. So that's what I mean. So Berber, Arab is a very tricky thing. There is all Berbers, I would say, the majority of them are Muslim. So same religion. The difference is that Berber has been taxed historically because it's a secular language. It was instrumentalized by the colonizers. It was instrumentalized by the state builders. But now it's only in 1211 that Berber became official. And still, I mean, there are more demands about that. Okay.
Okay, thank you for that.
I forgot the other questions. I'm sorry. Yeah.
Okay, we will just forward because there are just a few questions and we have to look at the time. But I can see that our audience is just as blown away by your knowledge and your input as I am. So there are a lot of comments like, thank you so much for your courage and sharing your knowledge. So a lot of comments like that. The next question is, dear Fatima, are you expecting a strengthening of patriarchal structures and behavior in Morocco due to the global circumstances like Corona crisis and stuff like that? And also a remark from that person, thank you very much for your interesting presentation.
Yeah, I think that patriarchy has been weakening not because of globalization. It started to weaken the moment women started to have salaries. When a woman could, because I forgot or I didn't have time to tell you that authority, that patriarchy is a very solid system. I don't know of any society which is not patriarchal, but patriarchy constitutes its own system in different society. The Arab Muslim patriarchy has decided that the public space is male, should be male and should have authority, and the private space should be female and don't have and should not have authority. So when women transgressed that space, they started to work and have a salary. That was the first nail in the coffin of patriarchy. And patriarchy is not something that men only are responsible of. Women are the patriarchs because women are the ones who, who makes men? It's women. It's women who makes men. And it's women who, when they become mothers, they historically, they benefit from patriarchy. So patriarchy is not something that you should blame for, but it's a system. It's a system that's working everywhere. But in our part of the world, it uses religion, it uses language, it uses the political system. Yeah. And women, our feminist movements have to be, if you want, manufactured inside this system. I don't think we benefited a lot from the West, but I don't think that our feminism is a product of the West. It's a product from inside society. You cannot actually address women if you don't address them from their own, from inside this patriarchy, so that they can see it and try to change it. So to answer your question, it has weakened a lot. It is changing. In my long years of teaching, the younger they are, the better, even Islamist or secular, the better they are in understanding what equality.
So can everyone still hear Fatima, or is it just me who cannot hear her anymore?
Okay, seems like the connection to Morocco is gone. We're trying to connect with Emilia and with Fatima again. So just hopefully a few seconds, please.
Okay, it was my connection, or was it the connection with Fatima? Hello? Oh, with both of us. Okay, so I'm back at least. Okay, you can hear me well. The problem is that I can't talk as educated about the gender topics as Fatima can do it. So I'm not sure if we get the line back to her. I'm not sure if my colleagues in the Berlin office are working on it. How bad, it was so interesting with her. Okay, so I think to make it not too long, we should continue to our next point, but I can tell you something else if you are interested in feminist topics. We will have another interesting web talk in the next week. It will be about feminist activism in the Warner region, and we have interesting activists from Morocco, Kuwait, and Sudan who will talk about feminism and female activism in the region. And you can also join us for free. It's next week on the 5th of October. You will find the information on our webpage and on the webpage of our partner Disorient or on Facebook. So you're very warmly invited. If Fatima comes back, we will, I think, shift it, I hope. But for now, I think we should continue with the next part so that you don't wait too long. We will go back to Marrakesh, just a few minutes away from where I am right now. There is a bike atelier. The company is called Pikala Bikes, and we will talk to their services and tour manager, Facil Issam, to hear about their interesting projects. Issam, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Wonderful.
I'm just having some difficulties with the video. If some of you can help me, I can't go on video.
I think the colleagues in the Berlin office have to set that free, that you can open your video camera. I don't know.
Okay, I think now it's...
No,
okay,
there you are.
Hello, everybody. How are you doing?
Hello. We are good.
Yeah, it was very nice hearing this Miss Fatima and Bauke, I believe. Sorry for pronouncing your name.
Bauke, yeah, it's difficult if you're not a German, I think, yeah. So good that you are here. So we will continue with our next topic, which is social entrepreneurship. So tell us about Pikala Bikes. What are you working in and what makes Pikala a social enterprise?
Okay, so first of all, my name is Issam. I'm 24 years old and I'm working for Pikala as a tour manager. So my work basically is about training other youth like me to become bicycle guides, especially girls, and trying to find more fantastic places with locals to take tourists to and visit in a sustainable way. I started with Pikala like almost 3 years ago, and my background is I have a BA in English Studies. For Pikala is an association that started in 2015 by a Dutch lady called Chantal Becker, and it's as you said, it's a bike project. The whole idea is that we use the bicycle to create job opportunities for youth people, for the education, and for the environment. And we have a lot of, these are our 3 main objectives, but we have a lot of other activities during the project. Like, for example, we have an education program of 2 years where we educate people from orphans, drop out of schools. Like, we teach them very basic skills like English, economic, mental health, and mechanics, and then they can work with us. So this is just an example about the education and how we create job opportunities.
Okay, so that sounds very interesting. Can you give us an insight of how many people are working at Picara and in which fields exactly do you train your workers?
Okay, so for Piccolo we have a big team now. It's around 30 people. We have people who works as mechanics in the mechanic shop who fix other bicycles, and also they used to be also, some of them used to be also our mechanic. They study here with us and then they started working with us. And we have the part of management, I mean the productional team, where we have project managers and supervisors who manage the team. And we have also bicycle guides, cultural guides. And this is one of the trainings that we give. So we help people in the university. Some of you already might know that it's a little bit difficult to get a job as a student in Morocco because the part-time jobs are not really, are very rare. So what we did is that we have created a program to train people, locals, I mean youth like me from the university who speak languages, and to become bicycle guides and take people to like cultural spaces in the Marrakesh and Agadir, because we also have another center in the other city, Agadir. Yeah.
Okay, very interesting. And I think, I don't know how much of our listeners and viewers have been to Marrakesh, but you have to know that going by bike is, I think, a revolutionary idea in Marrakesh, because it is basically the city of motorbikes.
Yeah.
So I think for many inhabitants here, the bike might be like a vehicle for poor people who can't afford a motorbike. And that's why I think you have to do a lot of work to change the reception of going by bike. Is that true?
Yes, indeed. So the bike, first of all, I would like to mention that Marrakesh, because it's a flat city, it used to be a very cyclist city. So a lot of people with bicycles. But the more the city is going bigger, then people start using the motorcycles. In a certain time, people start believing that the bicycle is a symbol of social class. So like if you have a bicycle, it means that you are from the lowest social classes. And that's what we are also working for. So basically we are doing a lot of activities, and I'm gonna mention some of them right now, for convincing people and showing them that the bicycle can be a bike can be a lot of other things. And it can be, first of all, like a choice. So you can choose to cycle. For example, we did a lot of activities for kids. We are targeting most likely kids to help them understand that like a drawing competition which happened like 2 years ago. It was like we went to schools and we gave the chance to kids to draw any bike they dream of, and then after that they had we did a competition where we designed some bicycles from them, and we mixed the other bicycles with other designs from artists from all around the world, and we took all these amazing pieces of art to the main squares of Marrakesh, like Jam Al Fna Square, like other main squares, and we exposed them to all the Moroccan, or I mean to everybody, to see what you can do with a bicycle. We also encourage cycling by working together with the municipality of Marrakesh to encourage them for creating more cycling path for the cyclists. We do also the free bike repair. So every year we create an event which is like between 4 to 1 week, and we repair the bicycles of all the city, or mainly people who come during these days, for free. And this is as a way to help and to create this mindset of bicycles.
Okay,
Yeah, and
sounds, yeah.
sorry, and before I forget, yeah, this is before I forget, we also do cycling classes for girls. In Marrakesh, we have a lot of universities, and a lot of girls are coming from the villages and the mountains around Marrakesh. And unfortunately, the majority of them have no idea about cycling, and they have to use the public transportation, and they wait, and a lot of other difficulties. So we have created a program which is cycling classes. It is for training girls on how to cycle, the traffic signs, and also the first aid. And the target is like more than 200 girl per each year. So
wow.
we do collaboration
That's a number.
with each school. Yeah, we do collaboration with each school, or what you call it, the campus, where the girls stay.
Okay. So, and how did your business strategy change now where there's Corona and you can't make bike tours with tourists?
Okay, what we have done, I have first mentioned that we are quite a big team of 30 people. And it was a little bit difficult for us during the COVID, especially because the majority of us, like 99% of us are youth under or around 20 under 30s. So what we did is that it was a little bit difficult for us to work from home, and like from our, like we used to spend a lot of time together. But during the COVID, we have created, we have developed our strategy for more like emergency response. Like for example, we started bringing the kids from the neighborhood and giving the chance to our employees to teach them English in a way, like in a very safe COVID way. We have interacted with the youth in the neighborhoods, and we helped them to paint the whole neighborhood. And this is, for especially during the lockdown, it was very difficult to find activities where you can integrate people and in the same time respect the COVID. So that's why we work like that. We have, for the moment, a project which we work with our partner, TUI Care Foundation, and it is a food distribution. It's also an emergency response, which is we distribute food baskets to Marrakesh, Agadir, and in Taroudat and the villages around. The distribution is we distribute it in a green way by using the cargo bikes and the other bikes, the bikes. We also distribute the sandwiches at night for people, because in Morocco for the moment, I think you already know, Emilia, all the shops have to stop at 10, and a lot of kids who lives in the street are suffering because they used to get their food just like by night from the snacks and from the restaurant. But for the moment, it was very difficult. It is very difficult for them to get it because everything shuts down at 10. So what we do is that we get our team and we go out in the evening and we try to find people in need, and we give them sandwiches and not only the food, but also the mental and the support. Also, you talk with them, you see how is it going with them, and a lot of other stuff.
But is it also a financial problem? Do you rely on the money of tourists? So is there any official official support from the region or from the country for companies like yours?
For this emergency response of food and sandwiches, we are working together with TUI Care Foundation. So they are the one who sponsored that project.
Okay, so you have sponsors, you're the lucky ones.
Yeah.
So just to give it a little more general touch, do you think that Morocco as a country gives a good basis for social enterprises? Is the country like supporting companies like these?
Well, this is a very, very nice and big topic for me, and I really like it because being a social entrepreneur in Morocco, I mean, when you are talking about the paperwork and the facility, it's very easy to get it, so it's not that difficult. But the way a lot of social enterprises are working in the field in Morocco, sorry.
Okay.
So the way is a little bit, for me, I found it it needs still a lot of work because some of them they depend like 100% on funds So you find a social enterprise or which are waiting just like for the funds and to keep their activities. While I see that a lot of youth in Morocco are very interested to join these social projects and to give a lot of stuff. And we can also not only depend on one or on one company in the country, but also they can also go wide in all Morocco.
And do you think, is there a connection between the social enterprises in Morocco? Like I saw you're working with Amal, like a restaurant in Marrakesh that is educating, especially for women in cooking and stuff like that. So is it like a community?
Well, that depending on each person. So some of them, they prefer. We have meetings and we have conferences and like webinars and seminars. Yeah, but it's really depending on each person.
Okay, and I want to encourage our listeners and viewers once again, if you have questions to Issam, just post them in the Zoom chat or in the comments on Facebook and we will hand them over. So what do you think is your most important project at Pikala Bikes?
Yeah, so, well, creating bike centers in each, like the center in Marrakesh of Agadir in all the regions of Morocco is one of it's our big objective, and it's also one of the main project, because then you do a lot of activities and you go sustainable. You can start, you can stay.
Okay, and you're personal as a youngster, what do you think about the development and the creativity of the social businesses in Morocco?
For the creativity, I see a development through the last years, but the only problem is that we have a lack of creativity and innovation for fixing problems. So, for example, the majority of associations, they still working in a traditional way. I would like to highlight that associations or social work is not something new in Morocco, but we used to have deeply in our traditions this kind of social work, like creating an association in a village who, like for example, like reconstruct a mosque or help people to farm or do stuff like this. But the problem in the post-colonization period, we had this modern way of association, and for the moment a lot of association are still doing it the traditional way, like for example very short-term activities. And I see that for myself that the lack is for the long-term activities, like creating sustainable activities and finding creative and innovative solutions for our current issues.
Okay, so for us at Shark Riser, we also try to adapt to the current situation and doing talks like this. And also we call it digital travels, which is like for 2 afternoons, we do virtual tours where I can actually also see parts of the country. But I see with my colleagues, sometimes they say, I miss my actual job, how it was before COVID-19. Can you agree?
Yes, I really agree on that. Yeah.
Okay. So my impression was that tourists might slowly get back to Marrakesh the last days. Do you see it the same?
Yeah, because you know the atelier, but in general we are in a touristic part, so we are very close to Jamal Fna, like 5 or 10 minutes cycling from here. And yeah, I can see that. So it's gonna go a little bit slowly, and that you can see it in our bookings and all the platforms that we work with.
Okay, so there are no questions until now. I think we both answered them all.
Okay.
So I can see that, oh, now where I say there's no question, there's coming a question. I read it out right now. Amazing project. Are you having talks with authority, for example, about innovative city designs, more bike lanes, safer bike parkings? Do you get any support from the officials? Yeah, I asked it too, but this is especially meant for the bike, like, yeah, if it's to make it safer to go by bike.
Yeah,
in
well,
Marrakesh.
this is it's one of the of our main goals, and it's not very easy to do. So we started this from 2016, from the COP22. We started working for the bike lines, and for the moment we are trying to find other collaborators who work also, like, who have a lot of cyclists to push the government. So we have a lot of plans for that.
Mm-hmm. And somebody also says, very cool project, it's true. Do you already feel there is a change within Morocco towards cycling and bicycles?
Well, I see the change from myself, because before the project, I didn't use the bicycle in my daily life, and I can see it also through our youngsters around. Which is very nice. And also during the COVID, we have a lot of people asking for to buy bicycles, and also our mechanic team are working very hard during these days for fixing a lot of bicycles. So I see a lot of use of bicycles also during the COVID period.
Okay, so that was the questions. I think we will close it right here, because also Fatima is back and I will continue with the Q&A with her. Okay. I say thank you very much for the information.
Thank you, everyone.
I say thank you for your important work, and say hi to the whole team from us. So we hope there will be a lot of tourists soon, and maybe we can also work together, and hopefully this nightmare for tourism will be over, and then it will be better than it was before. Thank you very much.
Thank you, you too. Thank you, everybody who was
I will come by for a mint tea during the next day.
Please.
So thank you very much.
Thank you. All right.
So let's get back to Fatima, finally. Yeah. Can you hear me?
Yeah,
Great.
I thought the program was cut. I thought the timing was
over, and we kicked you out. No, we would never do that. We were just getting started with the questions. So now
I didn't feel offended.
Okay, so where did we stop? I think it was, where should one draw a line between the Moroccan and legitimate culture and the patriarchy?
I don't get that question. Patriarchy is something that exists. Culture is what you make of it. Patriarchy is something that moves on very, very slowly, because it all boils down to power. But culture is something that makes patriarchy work forward and backward at the same time, because in our culture there are many very beautiful values, like the family, like solidarity, like many things that also empower women. But if you go back to the history of humanity, patriarchy has always existed since. I was reading a book about what is it? I don't find it here. It's in French, called La Préhistoire. I mean, the same thing happened. So patriarchy system. It's built on hierarchy, and it suits a class. It suits an elite, and they want to keep it. And it produces itself. They're thinking that's the way it should be. But the family is still very popular, very important. That's why it's not easy. And family is where patriarchy is manufactured. That's how family is where we learn to be a man and a woman. For example, let me be more concrete here. Inside the Moroccan families, there are 3 taboos, 3 things we don't talk about. The first one is virginity, at least my generation. We don't talk about it. And the second one is puberty. when the young girl starts to have her own period. And the first is menopause. Now, virginity is so important because it's linked to lineage, it's linked to the, it's linked to patriarchy and tribalism. And it's something that you find in the entire Middle East and North Africa, including Israel. Well, Israel is a developed country, but its patriarchy is very much Middle Eastern. Their family law is exactly like the family law of Syria, Egypt, and even ours. Because this part of the world, the Middle East and North Africa, there was tribalism before religions and patriarchy before religions. So what religions, Judaism, Christianity, and Islam did is they simply absorbed that, and they were used. A lot of them. I'm not here giving any value judgment. I'm trying to understand. That's all. So, yeah, I was saying that it's inside the family because of the taboos. So virginity is so important for this tribalism to exist, as a tribalism, as a hasabiya, like the whole body that should exist. And virginity is the only way you should be, you should know, you can know who your children are. It's taboo because when a woman, a young girl starts to have her own period, it means that she can be sexually active. So we don't talk about it. And menopause, believe it or not, I'm a linguist. There is no word for menopause in Darija. There is no word in Berber about menopause. The only word for menopause is in standard Arabic, and it's called sin al-yas, which means the age of despair. So you understand, I mean, this is where things are, as I said, manufactured. It's inside the family. So, and it's from inside the family that things can change. And things have changed, have started to change. That's where I was cut last time I was talking, because now young people now, I am a mother of 3 boys now, they are young men, but I can see that younger boys, my own students, they understand what equality means, because they know they sit in the primary school with little girls, and they know that the little girl can score better marks, better grades than himself. So there is a change which is taking place very slowly, because culture hates stagnation. So there is a change, but we cannot understand the change without understanding, I mean, where all this came from. It helped me personally. I mean, the more I get into these things, the more I understand why things are the way they are. I did benefit a lot from the West. I did my PhD in England. I traveled a lot. I lectured a lot. I owe a lot to it. But when you come here, that is when you start explaining these things to your own people, it's very important to understand the mindset and the history behind it. And then you become calmer and you start to understand why things are the way they are, okay? So not value judgment, but understanding. And gender relations are the backbone of all political debates in Morocco, and I think in the region. The modernists and the conservatives, the bone of contention is women's rights. The secular and Islamists, the bone of contention is women's rights. The Arab Spring, if you ask me, and my book is coming out next year, inshallah, it's about the Daesh ideology, and yeah, and where it comes, and then this took me to the history of North Africa, and believe me, women's rights are at the cement of the history of North Africa, and also of the big debates and the smaller debates. So that's why I approach women's rights not only because I'm a woman, I'm interested, I stand in my own position and all that, but also because you cannot understand North Africa without understanding the base of women's rights and how states used women's rights and who benefits from women's rights, ideology and women's rights and all.
So thank you, very interesting again. I also read that there are in Darija no words for the female body parts, and that it's all connected very much to hashuma, shame, just to talk about the body. So this might be a problem too, but getting back to our questions. Thank you, Fatima.
Excuse me, there was a question.
Yeah?
There was a question about urban, rural that I didn't answer.
Oh, okay, so your turn.
Yeah, urban, rural. The person me to go more into that. Well, very briefly, when we got independence, the rural areas were marginalized. When we colonized, the rural areas were marginalized. The rural areas, that's where the language and Berber women and the Berber language were marginalized. So for me, as a researcher, it's not a coincidence that now, after the Arab Spring, it's Berber and women's rights are emerging in the public sphere almost at the same time. Because there is Berber and women are very much related in the history of Morocco. And rural areas, when we were colonized, were very important in the struggle against the colonizers. That's why they believe in unity. They have always supported the centralized state, etc. But more nationalists, they marginalized Berber and the rural, thinking that those were nationalists were all urban. And a lot of Berber men and women fought for independence, but they are not present narrative the way the urban and rural in this country. And it's only now, I think that most of us, a colleague of mine thinks that the Arab Spring has started because of this division, because rural areas in the entire region were marginalized. But in Morocco, we have a big rural area. The rural area where the Arab Spring started in Tunisia is smaller, because Tunisia is a small country. But rural areas in Algeria and Morocco are big, and in Egypt, it's the same thing. So it's the rural nation and the rural problems. They don't say it, but you can feel it. You can feel it. It's the rural language, the rural habits. It's these things that are reclaimed now, and they are the meat of Moroccan identity. You have to stop me, because if I start speaking, never stop.
Okay, yeah. So we have a few more questions, so I try to get along with them. So again, thank you to you. Given your focus on the role of language in education, what do you think of Mohammed Al-Jabri? I don't know if I pronounce it right. Also a Berber who saw Standard Arabic as the most suitable vehicle for Moroccan education.
Yeah, this is a very good and very deep question. Now, as I say, I mean, when you are at the level of intelligentsia, the intellectuals, it's very hard to speak Arab, Berber. That's a discourse. That's in that part of the debate. It's the view of the intelligentsia that we should be part of the Arab Ummah, there are 22 Arab countries, and Morocco, right after independence, was part of those 22 Arab countries. But you say Arab countries, Arabic Islam. This is what makes us part of the Arab. I am not saying that this is bad. This is part of our identity. But what we are trying to do after independence is also look at the diversity. When you say that the Maghreb is Arab, you are actually you are hiding a big diversity. It's not only Berber, but also women, but also other things. I mean, diversity is very important. So Jabri was a great intellectual, and he was at the university when I was a student, and he was very popular. And a lot of people use I think that we cannot say that somebody is, I think that North Africa are Berber. It's a Berber land, but there are people who became, the Berbers who became Arabized, and other people big waves of arrivals of the Hilalis. These are tribes who consider themselves Arab, but I think that the region is basically Berber. It is basically Berber. And there is, one of our intellectuals like to say, if you scratch a Moroccan, you will find a Berber. So if you start scratching a Moroccan, you will find a Berber. Yeah. So Al-Jabri, what you said about Al-Jabri, that's a thought. It has nothing to do with the fact that Berber or Arab. It's just a discourse, because Arabic, a beautiful language, also written Arabic with a long history, it allows you to have and documentation also. But Berber has been an oral language. It's only now that it's going into school, and so it's more of an oral language. And I think that it has been kept as a language by women, not by men. Arabic was kept by men. I know that because I've just finished an article on the codification of Arabic. I know that the first grammarians were men, etc. But Berber was preserved because of women's art, the carpets, the tattoos on the body, the symbolism in that, the very strong symbolism in that. And the fact that Berber deity was not monotheistic. We had a goddess and the god in the past. So those things in the psyche, in the unconscious of Moroccans. And now a lot of websites are called Tanit. Who is Tanit? She was a pre-Islamic goddess. So these things now, after the Arab Spring, a lot of youth, they want to reconnect with that, not to revive it, but just to know it. Because when you mentioned education, we are not, these things that I'm talking to you about, I didn't learn them in the Moroccan school. I had to do my own research. Our education in this system needs a lot of reform. It doesn't include the history of Berbers.
Yeah, so there's another interesting question from Thomas. He says, dear Ms. Sadiki, if any, how can international organizations play a positive role in supporting women and feminist activism in Morocco?
They have already. In the 1980s, with globalization and democratization, feminists in Morocco understood that transnational feminism can help them put pressure on their governments, not only in Morocco, in Algeria, in Tunisia, in Egypt. And feminist organizations did, but feminist organizations very often. So now more and more Moroccan NGOs, non-governmental organizations, they understand the agenda on both sides. And people now are, feminists in Morocco have learned how to deal with the UN and also outside funding, outside help. All these things are linked. But I personally believe in transnational solidarity, in transnational help, and also in transcultural help.
Oh no, Fatima is gone again, or is it me? I just have to ask the stupid question because I really don't know.
I think she's gone, Emilia.
Once again, but we were almost at the end, I think, because the time is up now. Once again, apart from the fact that she might not hear us anymore, thank you so much, Fatima. It was really inspiring to hear you talk. I hope we can maybe talk more another time or work together in a different way. You told me that you have also a Students Abroad Center, so maybe we can connect our travels, because yeah, we plan travels to Morocco next year, so check out our website.
Sorry.
And she's back. I can hear her. Fatima?
Yeah. Sorry, I think when an email arrives, then something happens.
Okay.
I saw 2 emails in my inbox. Yeah.
Okay, but we were also at the end with our tight schedule, so maybe your email was interrupting us because of that. Is there any thought you want to make an end with, or? And she's gone again, or no?
Yes, I think that I enjoy talk and have a lot of passion for what I want. Whoever wants to visit Morocco, I always say it's good to understand like women's struggle, not only as men against women, because this is different because of our patriarchy, because of what I explained to you. There is something that oppresses, and men and women, and a lot of men and women are trying to find solutions in between. It's not easy, but it's taking place, and I am hopeful by it. And I am very lucky because my students, they're getting younger every year. Oh my God, every year they are getting younger, and I'm getting older, and I really enjoy, I enjoy them. I enjoy the interactions. And I think
we don't have the
hope
impression that you're getting older.
Oh yeah. But I mean, as we say in Morocco, we have the age of one's heart. I'm very happy to, I am very because of my job. I'm all the time with the younger people, and they're the ones, I mean, who read what you write. They're the ones who give you ideas. They're the ones. So I was very happy to listen to Facil. I mean, and this project is really good. Yeah.
Yeah.
I should buy a bicycle, Facil. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's a great idea.
Okay. So, Fatima, we make a point here. Thank you so much. It was really inspiring. I think we should keep up the work together.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
I love Germany. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Okay. We love Morocco.
Yeah.
Okay. So
Bye-bye.
that takes us to our last but not least speaker for tonight. So I hope he's there. Yemoh Odoi is a Moroccan-based Ghanaian. So he comes from Ghana. He's an interdisciplinary artist. He's the founder and the artistic director of the Minority Globe Association. It's an intercultural and artistic organization, and as far as I know, it was created to develop common ideas between migrants, refugees, locals in Morocco, and to kind of make a bridge between different cultures, different ideas, and to communicate on a different level than divisions and misunderstandings through creative and critical thinking. So good evening, Yemoh. Tell us about your project and about the situation of migrants in Morocco.
Of course. So thank you for inviting me for this occasion, and I want to
just a short, I don't know if it's only me, but your volume is very low.
Okay, I want to try again. Is that okay?
It gets better.
Yeah, okay.
Much better.
Okay, perfect.
So the stage is yours.
Yeah, so yeah, I'm Yemoh Odoi from Ghana, and I've been living in Morocco for a decade and a half now. And yes, of course, the Minority Globe was created through experiences, through the need, not rather a dream, but through the need of what I observe on the field concerning using cultural approach to better assist migrants. So this is how the Minority Globe begin. But how do I say? I am, first of all, I'm an artist. And so this is why I have this I brought this approach of using art as a means to approach them, this cultural way of approaching them. There are several languages. When the NGOs were working with them, they had tough time approaching them, understanding what they want to really say. And so passing several years myself, crossing the desert, staying with this population and understanding how things works. So I came in, I was arriving in Morocco, volunteer for NGOs like the MSF and collaborate with a lot who are also still working on the field. And then I end up as an artist creating my own band, which became an organization later on. The Minority Globe was first of all a musical band. After what I observed on the ground as working with MSF, I met a lot of artists, musicians, great musicians. And I was trying to convince them to settle in Morocco because Morocco is a touristic country where you have hotels all over where they need musicians to perform in the hotels and for tourists and so forth. And so the idea of creating the Minority Globe, starting from somewhere, if you preach something, you have to be. And so this is why I came by creating the Minority Globe with other musicians, artists, with students, because in those days it was confusing. It was in 2005, 2006. It was confusing to tell the migrant you have to settle down here. I mean, there's nothing in Europe. I mean, Europe is not like it used to be before 30 years back, 20 years back. And so trying to convince them. And so we created the Minority Globe, and then we were performing, and then we have TV coverage, radio coverage, and they were like, okay, I know this brother. Oh, I know these guys. Wow, they can be on the Moroccan TV. Yeah, we are going to do music. We are going to show off our talent. And these are the Minority Globe came up. And those days we couldn't make it as an organization because there was no law permitting foreigners to create an organization within Morocco, except with the exception of one or two countries who were with a political relation with the kingdom could create, but normal people couldn't create. So we stood as an enterprise, as a company, and we're operating, playing, having concerts and distributing kits, food when we can, because we had people supporting us all over. And so people want to see the migrant, and then we'll be like, some need clothes to wear, some need food to eat. The medical side, there was MSF, but so many things that you can't assist them with. So yeah, all this, the Minority Globe came through all these experiences of observing. So it's out of need that I decided that we should have a cultural approach, an artistic approach, as being already a musician. And so yeah, creating the Minority Globe, created a lot of, facilitated a lot of understanding for migrants. Today you have musicians all over, not because we train all of them, but because we were able to have coverage here. And so encourage even professional musicians to come from Sub-Saharan Africa, coming from the Ivory Coast, from Congo, from the Cameroon, from countries like that. And there were a lot of festivals also in Morocco, which encourage people to settle down here, encourage migrants to settle down here. So this is all about the Minority Globe. And actually we have a lot of projects we are doing with the community. I mean, theater project, music project, photography project, visual art in general. But first of all, it's not to create arts. It's to create a space where migrants can talk. They can some would discover their talents, or some would just want to be around to talk. And I mean, we wanted to create a free space where there will be no stress of sharing your stories, because most of the time, as somebody who worked for the MSF and other NGOs, most of the time I realized that they were not sharing their real stories. They're like, okay, journalists come in, they keep on asking the same questions. Where are you coming from? Why are you here? Have you eaten? Is Moroccan racist? And this and that. So they have questions. They have a bunch of questions they give out, even if they are not victims, because this is what they think is expected of them. Journalists want to hear particular stories, and they have the stories. So they tell them what is not even related to their own story. So it becomes a kind of way where, so when we realized we're going to create a space where they are going to talk about their real stories, like by being genuine to them, telling them what you want from them and telling the truth, what is going to assist them to be. So all these things came, and so a lot of things were created this way. We created a space where they can talk, and then we were not alone. I mean, there were other organizations already doing this, like the Foundation Orient Sudan in Rabat, and they're all over Morocco. They also, and at the same time, 2005, tried to work with migrants already. But one thing special about the Minority Globe was like migrants working for migrants. It's not like you have been with a different culture, different kind of understanding, different morals. These are people you are dealing with who know each other. I mean, I'm from Ghana, so if I'm dealing with somebody from Sierra Leone or Nigeria, or from even Senegal, where I know because I also speak French, it's not like somebody coming from France or from Spain and asking you the same question. So then we know ourselves, we know how we tell our stories. Then you have the real stories by being sincere to them, by giving them this space. And so this is how we started, and our activities are based on this, creating this space where locals, Moroccans, can work in hand with migrants, where they can understand each other. And through art, a lot of things goes on. Through art, they work together a lot. When it comes to art, that's where you can't say there's a lot of discrimination, because those days when I came to Morocco, it was like this film I remember, if I want to pretend, it was like coming to America, you know what I mean? When you are at the right place, where when you are doing art, people want to, it's the only thing, because they have this belief that blacks are good in art and sports and other things. So anything related to art, music in those days, even if you are not getting well paid for, but you have an audience who want to listen to you, because it was new here. They have their festivals. Musicians come from the state, perform and go back, from Europe, from Africa, but now you are living in the community with musicians. It's what new to the local population, so they were interacting. Then comes a lot of art forms, disciplines, mediums, and so they were sharing. And until today, migrants are doing good here, those who are in the art. I'm not saying financially, but having the national coverage, being in the news medias is something very common in Morocco for them. So now a lot of artists are settling down here. But then again, I said, we are not doing it to create artists. We are using this means to open, to show what the migrants have. They have to have their intellect, they have their knowledge, their way of doing things, and through art they can share. Or through theater is the only way, or storytelling is the best way they can share their knowledge with the local population, or the population understanding them better, because you have this new policy which came in 2014-15, and then migrants were able to obtain documents. Those who were able to fill the criteria were able to get documents here, and then they have to take it to the next level. Those who had created project, those who didn't have project, today they don't have document again, because they didn't have project to help them continue renewing their documents. So this is the thing now. Morocco has been good in the past. It's still being good to migrants, but migrants are confused today because of this situation of coronavirus. One major problem is mobility. It's a very big problem, because you are living in a country which is not your own, which you are adapted in the country, and you survive by moving. Even the low-class population have to survive by moving a lot. So migrants survive here through mobility. The majority don't have fixed jobs, and they try to trade on the street and other things to create their own jobs. Those even going for begging for alms on the street, other things. Now with COVID, things have changed. A lot of challenges in the community, like not being able to renew their documents, so they can easily travel from region to region. They can easily go and see somebody if they are sick, or they need even just financial help, because first of all, this is a community which is they are very solidary among themselves, that they help each other a lot. But right now you have COVID, those who were working have spent all the money to take care of the rest in the house. I mean, when I say in the house, when they are living in an apartment, it could be different nationalities. But in this kind of situation, people are going to share their resources, their income and everything. And now they are left with nothing. So these are some of the challenges. Some cannot even travel. If they have to go to Rabat to see NGOs to receive help, they can do that because they don't have proper documents on them. So these are the challenges now during the COVID. Have there been migrants who are infected during this pandemic in Morocco? We don't hear much about that. We don't hear much about that. But the challenges are these. Healthcare is a challenge. How to get this daily income, it's a big challenge. So they are dependent. People are calling you to assist them. So these are the challenges here. And then we are trying our best because of this COVID, we couldn't work on the ground. We mostly work in public space and other things. We couldn't do that. So we have we have 1 or 2, 3 projects standing on the waiting list, and we are trying to figure out how we're gonna carry out things, because once in a while when we are doing projects and they are involved, they get some little change on them now, they can do that. So these are really the challenges during this COVID, and associations, migrant associations and NGOs are trying their best, but the demand is so much that you don't know where to start from. Everybody's working in this confusion, in this global pandemic. I mean, migrants are the most affected because they're not living with their parents. They don't have fixed resources and other stuff. These are the challenges. I mean, calls come in every day. And so far we have, I mean, even talking about those who have lost their lives, not through COVID, but through other situations like that. I mean, about 3 or 4 people at the mortuary, and migrants are calling to see how best some their families want them to be repatriated back home, but there is no means. So they are trying to know if there are NGOs here who can help them. And so it's confusing because in the time of MSF didn't assist on this, but there were ways where talk to people and try to gather money. Now that community cannot do that. They can't gather money to even say the last goodbye to their loved one. So it's complicated for them, and calls still coming. Where are they going to start from, and this and that? And we are like, the only thing we can do, this is what the NGOs do, is to listen to their stories and share reports. Share that's the only thing. So these are the challenges in the communities at the moment, and we are trying to figure out, but we can't pretend we have solutions. Our solutions are art and therapy.
Thank you very much, Yemoh, for this compromised introduction to your work. Very interesting as well.
You're welcome.
We have a few questions, so we get into the Q&A session right away. So the first question is, first a remark, it's great to see engagement and passion, true. The person, I guess it's from Claudia, wanted to ask, how wide is the participation of Moroccans in your projects?
How well is Moroccan? Yeah, I mean, like I think I said earlier on, I can't remember. I don't remember if I said that, but most of our projects it's always done with Moroccans. I mean, the president of the association, she's a Moroccan. We have, I mean, half of the distant people on board are Moroccans already. I mean, the idea came by creating something, but those who are well positioned to manage the organization are managing it, and Moroccans are involved. And most of our project, like I said, we have some project going. We have this project with a university in the UK, which is it's art and diversity. And this project, we have Moroccans in it, professional artists who have been to this fine art school from Tetuan to the School of Casablanca, and they're included in this project. And you have migrants who are not majority, are not professional artists. You have this here, you come with locals who are professional artists. Some are with their master's degrees, some even with their PhD degrees, working with migrants who don't have really degrees, and they're doing the same thing. They're working hand in hand. They're doing the same training. This is a training where we are trying to show them how the market, it functions in the market, how to prepare their portfolio, if they are photographers, if they are painters, musicians. And so these are most of our projects is like this. Theater project we did in the past, like Mix City, which was a major project funded by the EU, Drum Diversity and Development. It was, yes, 50-50 Moroccans and migrants. So we work, the Minority Globe work hand in hand compared to other organizations. It work hand in hand because I personally have been traveling, and when I'm out of Ghana, it's not Ghanaians who help me, locals help me. So I felt the need to give back to community, the society which has received me, I have to give it back. And then not only giving back, Morocco have its challenges. Locals have their challenges, sometimes more harsh than migrants coming in. The only difference is that they are on their soil. That's the whole, so all this you take into consideration, and the idea of this coming back again, when I was working in MSF, and my Moroccan friends were telling me, you mean MSF is only assisting migrants and why not Moroccans? So the idea of this way of, and we have a policy, for instance, if we are traveling on the road, the car of the MSF is traveling on the road, and there are doctors inside, and there's an accident, like Moroccan accident between Moroccans, the car has to stop and the doctor has to go out to serve the Moroccans. So we have policies like this and all. So all these things came naturally, that giving it back. I mean, when I came here, my first band was a Moroccan band where I was adapted to be the lead singer in the band. You know what I mean? So it was all natural that you be involving the locals. So most of the projects we are doing, it's always involved. I work a lot with Moroccans. Personally, I work a lot, and yeah.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Next question is, how is it able for you to build trust in the organization? Do some so-called migrants mistrust you in the beginning?
Yeah, it's a very good question. This question you're asking is a very good question, because I'm saying it's a good question because for me, traveling around, being an artist, being in Senegal, like I said earlier on, I don't live with my Ghanaians wherever I go. I interact with everybody. This is how I end up speaking French and other things. And so I don't know how I got it, but yeah, I personally don't have this problem of interaction with people, and this is my expertise in organization of approach, how to approach migrants, how to talk to them regardless of where they are coming from. Most of our project, we have all nationalities, even if right now we are focused on the Anglophone community, mostly the women, but even when we are doing projects with them, we'll make sure we'll bring one or two migrant women from Francophone countries just to interact, to change the game that we are not only with Francophone. So it has always been natural from MSF that I have to personally, I speak French, je parle français. Donc, naturally reaching out to the population. And most of the time, it's now a lot of people know me now, but most of the time they were confused if I was coming from Gabon, if I was coming from Cameroon, if I was coming from the Ivory Coast. They were confused because I spoke the French. And so people were confused sometimes when I was with the Senegalese and I speak the Wolof, and they'll be like, are you a Senegalese? Are you from Gambia? Because Gambia, they speak Wolof there too. You know what I mean? So it's confusing. Sometimes you are working in Mauritania, you speak the Wolof again, they ask you, are you in Mauritania? You're like, no, wow, no, I'm not from Mauritania. So I happen to be mingled with a lot of people that is very, very difficult to really, if I don't tell you where I come from, most of the time I used to make fun of them. When I go into the community where nobody knows me, I ask them, guess where I'm coming from? They will Congo, Cameroon, Gabon, and they'll be like, they are confused because even with the way you're speaking the French, we don't have an accent, particular accent to imagine where you're coming from. With all this approach, with this artistic approach, being human to people, trying to understand them. I had a psychological training, first aid training from MSF, how to look at someone and know that they are stressed or they have trauma or other things. All this training I had professionally. So this is what is helping the Minority Club. It's personally helping me to approach people. I know when somebody is in a bad mood, I can just look at the face, and that's training from MSF. And so these are the things, the same way we do it. If I can interact with people who I don't speak their language by doing sign language or by just trying to be friendly, and then you have the conversation. But then when they don't trust you, you don't just have to force. This is how it goes. Then because if you force yourself, which when you got something to sell, there's something become more strange and other things. So yeah, this I'll call is just by traveling. I've spent more than half of my age outside my country. I left 18 years, today I'm 40 plus. So you can imagine mingling, interacting with people, it came from this, right?
Okay, thank you very much. So
You're
we
welcome.
have about 5 minutes left and two questions, just to give you an idea.
Perfect.
The first question is the protest or the process of starting an association or organization like yours, is it different for you or for migrants compared to Moroccan residents or citizens?
I don't think so, but although Moroccans also call me to ask when they want how they can open their organization or something, mostly when it comes to associations. I have Moroccan friends who contact me and they're like, we don't know where to begin from. I'm like, it's your country, it's the most easiest thing to do. But it got to a time, if I can remember, it got to a time about a year or two ago, it became challenging because the government saw that there were a lot of organizations, associations all over, and they were not operating. I mean, I heard this from a Moroccan friend who was telling me last year or so that they were not operating. So the government has decided to track some down and see those who are really working, because it happens that some people just open it just for one project they have in mind. They open an association. When that project is done, that's it. We have an association, but it doesn't operate or something. So I think in the days I came in the earliest years when I have no access to create an organization yet, then I end up creating an enterprise, which helped a lot of migrants because they couldn't believe that a migrant could do an enterprise here. I told them I did it. So I was giving workshops all over that it was possible before the migration policy came. So yeah, with this, if Moroccans are finding it challenging, I think it should be this, because the government has decided that there are so much organizations, so much associations, and they are not really operating. And so they have to shut some down and give their opportunities to those who are really doing something. So this might be the challenge. If not, it's very easy to open an organization. I'm not a Moroccan, so I shouldn't be the best person to talk on this topic. But I think because I keep giving advice to friends who are calling me, just a week ago, a friend called me just to ask the same question. So, yeah.
Okay, so last question is because we in Germany or maybe even in whole Europe, poorly we have to deal with rising racism. Do you think it's a topic in Morocco as well?
Yeah, racism is a topic in Morocco, but how do you define racism in Morocco compared to Europe?
I mean, it's a problem. Yeah, maybe it's not only racism, it's more nationalism. And do you experience that in your daily work?
Nationalism is here. You can avoid this. Nationalism is here. I know a lot of people who are very nationalist. It could be like I'm coming from Ghana and people say, but you're coming from the most nationalist country because your first president was a nationalist, but we Ghanaians don't act really nationalist because that's a country, but it differs from where you go and other things. Yeah, nationalist is a big issue in Morocco, but that does not prevent people from working. Talking about racism, I would say no, it's ignorance, because a racist is somebody who know where to get the right information and refuse to get it. Okay. But somebody who wants to be ignorant, who is ignorant, it does not even know that there is an information to get access to information. When you look at you go to the Moroccan curriculum, the educational curriculum, there are no subject on Africa. In Ghana, I was studying in Morocco. In primary school, I have to study all over the Arab world. We are in a non-Arab country, and we are studying the whole world. We are learning about Alaska, the food they eat, the way they dress. We are learning about Egypt, the bread, the type of bread they eat, the population, other things. This is not found in the curriculum here in Morocco. So they are focused on the Western and in the Western and the Eastern world. That's where the focus is. So they didn't have access to this. That's why I would say, how do I define racism in Morocco? It's confusing. It's very tricky. It's very tricky because to me, somebody who is racist is somebody who is educated. If I know all these issues in the kingdom, then I will not call a young person telling me, oh, Azi, comrade asked the other day, I will not really say it's racist. I will just say ignorant. That's ignorant because they didn't get access to information, whereby in Europe, Europeans can get the information. Even if you have ignorance, people can get the information if they want, and they just don't want to get it. They want to act like everybody. So it's really confusing. Sometimes you can call it racism. It's a complicated question to answer to me.
Okay, so it was a complicated last question, but we reached the limit of 2 hours, and so we have to make a cut here. So maybe we can continue some other time. For this, I say thank you, Yemoh. Thank you very much. So this brings our Ferngespräche series. It's the German word for long distance calling, by the way. Brings it to an end for today. So I hope you learned a lot, as much as we did. And now just think to go on a trip with us, which is like 10 days or 14 days. But I promise we also do chilling things. So please check out our travels, digital as physical, on our website. We hope to see you all soon. One notice in our own course: we rely on donations to make these events possible and to make them accessible for free, because it's part of our self-definition to make political education and like talking to each other accessible. So if one or other of you could see the chance to make a donation, we say thank you very much. So you can see all these inputs soon on our YouTube channel. You can follow us on the typical channels like Facebook and Instagram. And of course also our partner Disorient. Check it out, it's really good work they do. And you can subscribe to our newsletter and stuff like that. We hope to see you all soon. And don't forget, next Monday we will have a Ferngespräche, long distance calling, about feminist and female activism in the Varna region. And we will also have Moroccan activists, so you can join us again. So for now, I say cheers with a mint tea. And if I don't fall over my cables and manage to open the window with the one hand, I can give you another view of the nightly Tanneries and the moon over Marrakesh. And I say thank you, merci, shukran, and good night. Laila Saida, bonne nuit, gute Nacht. Hope to see you soon. The Zoom conference will be open for a while so that you can maybe copy the things you found interesting from the chat. And we hope to see you next week. Bye bye. It was fun. Thank you.